Hi, and welcome to my train of thought. Today's topic, government-mandated journals, and why I think they might be a good idea. We'll get into this and more after our little jingle.
All aboard!
All right, so government-mandated journals and why they would be good. So I'm going to try a new format of how I do this podcast here. So essentially, I typed into ChatGPT some questions someone might ask me on verbatim. Write some questions that someone making a podcast could answer. The topic is if government-mandated journals would be good. Now, I think they might be good. I am a little biased there. But it wrote down a bunch of questions. I haven't even read a single one. I just copied them into a Google Doc. And now I'm going to go through them and answer them. See if, there's anything that I might, be able to convince you of. So essentially, the first question it asks is, what would government-mandated journals look like in practice? Now, I personally believe that the whole idea behind government-mandated journals, now, I'll give you a general overview of my thoughts. I think that it would be a good way to understand the human experience. It's like if everyone had to have a podcast where they speak into it, into a microphone for like 20 minutes and then just kind of talk about themselves and ideas they have, kind of like exactly what I'm doing now. I think that this would be a wonderful way to get a better understanding of the human condition. Now, what would government-mandated journals look like in practice? I believe in my fantasy world, it would be kind of, mandated in the fact that, people just did them. We're not going to get into the ethics of it right now, but people once a week, once a day, however, I don't know exactly the time frame. I think once a week would be appropriate. You don't need to have necessarily every day, but it'd be good to have something. Once a week, people would go and, write about what happened to them that week. They could be it could be like a paragraph minimum. I think it would be a paragraph minimum. They would talk about what happened to them, how they feel. It doesn't have to necessarily be just a straight, this is what happened to me this week. I think at points, now some people, their entire lives, if they did this, they would just write one paragraph like they had to, and then not, go into it. And they wouldn't really care, and you wouldn't really get a lot of valuable data from it. But I think you'd still get, little snippets here and there. You'd have an understanding of this person's life that you still would not have regardless of the journals. Even if they just, put fuck, sorry for the curse word, but, if they just put gibberish in there, you'd have an understanding of this guy, being kind of against government-mandated journals, and maybe someone who, is kind of roguish, in what it comes, to what they're willing to do. But you get people to write for, their lives, and once they die, you would release it. Maybe after 2 generations or 100 years, something. Because you look at history, and you have all these interesting journals. You have letters from the Civil War, from husbands to their wives. It's such a big source of primary documents. Now, we live in a different age where we don't need primary documents to the same extent as we did back then. Everything is recorded. People make podcasts, just on their own. And, you don't necessarily need everything in a journal, but I still think that, if people knew these were 100% safe and secure, and I know no one, this is not actual, this is like, people who talk about a utopia. But if people did actually believe that these were safe and secure and would not be released while they were alive, people would talk about things that genuinely they don't get to talk about, that they would die to their grave with, if they're embarrassed about something, if they, you know, feel shame in any way for something, uh, they could talk about it. And not only that, we'd be able to understand that from their perspective. If somebody did, I don't know, just anything. If somebody had a wonderful life, but then, abandoned their children. Why did they abandon their children? Was it because they were anxious? Is it because they didn't care? It just give a general understanding of the human condition. Um, Another question: how might government oversight impact the freedom and quality of academic research? I kind of got into that a little bit, but essentially, I think that this would really allow for the government to really examine, well, not the government, fuck the government, no offense, but it's you, it's about the social study of people and how we get to understand each other. And I think that there is a lot of understanding to be had through academic research, historians, um, anthropologists, all sorts of people. You'd be able to, I feel like we're losing a sense of community in America. I certainly feel like I'm losing a sense of community in where I live now, Carmichael. And I don't feel like I know my neighbors. And while this wouldn't necessarily restore your sense of community, it would let you have a better understanding of a community as time went on. And you could even say that, like, imagine the possibilities with this. Let's put it into a giant supercomputer that analyzes it, and then, you can ask an AI to give a paragraph of this guy, a year of this person's life. There's already stuff that compiles it and puts it together and all sorts of stuff like that. And I think that that could be a really interesting. I mean, look, I'm not big into the AI, but I did just use ChatGPT to come up with some questions because I was too lazy. It's a good tool, but shouldn't take over everything. But anyway, you get so much information from that, and you can kind of start looking into, like, you could talk about the presidency. Why do what drove people to vote the way they did? What drove people to not vote? And you can look at that data and understand people more. What lessons can be learned from other countries? Okay, no one. I don't think there's any. Hold on. Okay, it says this is like talking about other, countries that have implemented government-backed or publicly funded journals. Publicly funded journals. I'm looking this up right now. Publicly funded personal journals. I mean, off of a basic Google search, I don't see shit about that, so I'm not gonna put any weight in that question. I think it would be cool. You get a better understanding of other countries, other people. It's like, I mean, we already have that to a degree, but I still think this would be, interesting. How might mandated journals influence the financial aspects of academia? Okay, this is definitely, it does not realize that I'm talking about personal journals. It's talking about academia. So we're gonna get into these questions and just adulterate them to fit my needs. What measures would need to be in place to ensure these journals remained unbiased and independent of political agendas? The thing is, you would want them to be. You would want them to be completely biased, and dependent on whatever political agendas of the time and the people were happening. That's how that's because you want this to be just unadulterated people, who they are and how they feel. You wouldn't get it most of the time But even the people who wouldn't give that would still be giving you, you know, a taste of who they really are. And so, you know, to take that and then put it into, um, whatever. Hold on. Sorry, my friend Instagram messaged me. I hope I haven't been causing a lot of audio issues. Do you hear audio issues from this? You probably do. Probably sounds really annoying. Sorry, you're going to get that for a second. I'm going to try and fix that so it doesn't happen. Oopsies. Just unplugged my stuff. I might I might edit that out because I just gonna unplugged everything. So oopsies again. But yeah, as you can see, that I'm not really gonna edit this because I don't care. Now, when we get back to the journals, let me just, you know what? I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. They are personal journals, not academic. Okay. Now we got some better questions. How might the government oversight of personal journals be ensured to regulate privacy? Uh, so the way, like, you know, I don't know the specifics. That's for the science people. Um, but my thoughts are kind of like, you could have them uploaded to servers. Those would get hacked. Everything does now. But, maybe there's some way to like store it on a maybe we do it like this. You would upload something and it would get marked in a server, encrypted in a server that you you're forced to get a tattoo, like in the between your big toe and your other toe, and it's like a little QR code, and no one can take it from you. And like there's so like crazy authentication, or you have like, they inject you with into your spleen. They inject something, and it stays there until you die, and then they use that as like a key to access your journal. Anyway, um, and you know, if you whenever you upload one journal, you get like a free Starbucks or like a food stamp or just something where the government gives you $4 or something for making a journal entry, and you can only do one a day or one a week. But now we're getting into like socialism or something, social care, which I think is great. But it's like people would just put in like the letter L, and then there'd have to be a character, not limit, but character minimum. Um, but anyway, yeah, you like have some bio code that only happened like maybe the government has to register you're dead, and then like there's some crazy shit that like Google stores all this data. I don't know. It's all text, right? And even if it, you could do stuff like people could upload audio, but maybe it just gets converted to text with like AI. Um, I don't know. Could there be legal or ethical ramifications if personal journals were monitored or accessed by the government? Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's why this should actually not really happen. But if it ever could, I think it would be something that um, could really deepen our understanding of humanity. What kind of content would people be required to include in these journals? I don't think they'd be required to do anything. I think that goes against kind of the idea of it. I think over time, after 50 years of, the government being like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, or you have to do this. um, Maybe, we we get people who actually do it and think that it's useful. And journaling is useful in many ways for personal health, emotional and mental. It can be a great. I know I've journaled. I've started a couple journals in my time. Right now I have one. I really only write in it when I have anxiety. Um, but it's just it, journals on their own are good. People do it naturally, and and I think a government mandated one that did actually have pure security and people knew it had pure security or whatever you want to call it, um, it would be a good way for people to do that. Um, what could mandatory journaling impact different age groups, such as students or senior citizens? That's actually quite a good question. I think, um, you know, with students, it could help them learn. It could help them, kids already journal, like you have the trope of, young teen with her journal and it's got a little lock on it and she writes about the boys in her school. And, this might provide a bit of an emotional outlet for young boys. And, that's something to absolutely, I think would be good. For senior citizens, it could help them remember their. Oh my God! Think about the benefits for senior citizens. It could help them remember their life. Look, I've never had Alzheimer's. I don't know what dementia's like. But imagine if you could just read your history. That alone is almost. I had an experience once. I My mother wrote a journal when she was pregnant with me. And I read that in front of her. I sat on the bed, she was just like hanging out or listening to music or something. I sat on the bed at the foot of the bed and I, you know, read through this journal that she gave me of hers. And it was such a transformative experience to be able to listen to my mom's thoughts about me before she even knew me. And I hope I don't know where that journal is right now, but I know she has it somewhere. It's probably in a cedar chest. And I want to be able to read that journal again and look at it and think to myself, wow, this is really, you know, this is my mom. I can read it to her when she's old and maybe she gets dementia and she doesn't remember me. And I can read that to her on one of the good days where she does. And you got to think about it. It could be really transformative if you have your whole life, all your emotions of your life in a journal that you could read and remember. That's and it would just, it's like when I read my personal journal, one little entry reminds me of something. It gives you a little brain blast, and you remember, all of a sudden, oh yeah, like I was reading my journal earlier and I read this passage where I mentioned how many bats there were in the parking garage. I remembered that. And I remembered me talking with my friend about it and like being there and being like, oh fuck, I hope I don't get bit by a bat and get rabies like in that episode of The Office. And, it's like, it just starts a chain of nostalgia and memory. And I think that's something that shouldn't be taken for granted. So I think that it would actually impact age groups massively. I think it could be beneficial. Would a mandated journaling system be voluntary or enforced with consequences for noncompliance? Now, I don't know. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know. Um, I feel like it could be worth I didn't even want to say that. Like, I don't know. Like you can't really enforce it ethically. So what do you do? I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a really difficult. What does a government man enforce, or how does it punish people? Right? It punishes them with prison and fines and capital punishment. Right? Those are like the main ways of a government punishing you. Um, Occasionally they'll take your time and give you like you know, like go pick up trash on the freeway, do public service stuff. But maybe it'd just be public service, like you get out of it by working at the homeless shelter, because then you have, maybe it's like, you have to do something ethical. I don't know. I don't know what the punishment would be, but I think it would just be um, something that would be worth having people do. Could mandatory journaling help improve emotional intelligence and self-reflection? Oh yeah, I mean we already talked about that a little bit, but absolutely. Um, how might such a system affect people who are already struggle with writing or self-expression? That is a very good question. I think it could help them learn self-expression. I think you'd have a lot less people struggle with self-expression if they're brought up doing this, and if it's normalized. Especially, with both of those, writing and self-expression, people would become more literate in being able to express their feelings and, what's happened to them and how they feel about it. Another good benefit of journaling, and why, if you're listening, you definitely should. But I think that, it would be something that could be super valuable to those people with those issues. Like I was saying, it'd take like 50 years for this to even become somewhat normalized. So that would have to happen. Would there be a risk of journaling leading to negative effects, such as anxiety or stress about maintaining entries? Yeah. Yeah, they could write about it in the journal. Uh, I mean, yeah. Again, once a week, I mean, shit. I've had, it's been, I've had things I needed to do once a week that I didn't. So, I think that's why, rather than, rather than punishing people who don't, you reward the people who do, and you create a caste system based off of who um, succeeds and who writes the most. You know, um, screw the the rich people. We need journalers. We need people who self-express. They're the people who should be leading us, and who should have all the wealth. If you get $4 from the government every time you journal, I mean, let me pull up a calculator real quick. Um, oh, you're gonna hear that one. It's $4 times 365. That's $1,460 a year. If you did it daily, that's actually not a lot. Um, Over a standard year, that'd be $100,000. I still feel like that's totally worth. Well, maybe not. I mean, $4 is garbage. Um, what if you did? Okay, let's say $10 an entry, 3,600. I do it for that. I do it for $10 an entry. Are you kidding me? That's like two Starbuckses. I could literally live a better life if the government gave me $10 a day. This is a side point. I think the government should give me $10 a day, at least me. Other people, if they want, but I would live a lot happier if I got $10 a day. Just saying. I think everyone. Would you disagree? No. Um, let's see. So to answer that question, rather than mandating it, I guess you encourage it. So maybe the whole podcast title should be changed, but I won't. Um, let's see. The next question: how would the government address accessibility concerns who are unable to write or journal due to disabilities? That's fine. They just don't have to, or they do it, audibly. Or let's say they can't move or speak, then, or like they have like really high grade autism. That's okay, as long as the government clear. We'll have, we have the Internal Revenue Service. We're gonna have the internal journaling service, and the IJS will come out and see if you're being honest with your. The government's gonna judge if your disability is real. Yeah, see, this causes a lot of good things. No, but I mean, it's like if someone genuinely can't or doesn't want to, they don't. Right? We're getting rid of the mandated here. That's what we've decided. Um, could mandatory journaling improve public health by identifying mental health trends? Fuck yes. We discussed it a little bit, but again, this would be gold for anthropologists, for historians, for anyone who wants to understand the human condition. Um, like literally we could start, looking at what people journal. If they, let's say, it was an accurate retelling, well, we could go a step further. What if people GoPro'd and had a fucking Neuralink in their head and literally like their state of being was tracked? Think about, what would happen with people who go and commit like massive crimes and or whatever, like how your understanding of them and how to spot people who have issues like that would be. Now you scale that down to journaling, and you get some information out of that. Not the same as if you have the Neuralink in their head, but you absolutely get some info. So I think that's something to, look at, and I think that it would help. How would such a mandate be received by people with different cultural attitudes towards privacy and self-expression? We're not going to get into that because there's just too many variables. There's so many people in the world. Again, if they don't want to, I guess they don't have to. But I think, again, we're living in this la la land where it is 100%, private and secure. And in this case, I think that people, I mean, everyone has a bias. You get a biased view of someone's religion, so you get an internal look at it. I don't think that would necessarily. But you'd also get people who like, let's say Christians who don't want to be Christian anymore, but feel stuck in it. They'd be able to talk about, how they feel and what's making them feel that way. Do they feel oppressed by somebody, or what about people who feel unable to become religious because of the social stigma around it at the time, or with the people they hang out with? It's like there's a bunch of different things that we could learn from this. What alternatives to government mandating journals could achieve similar benefits without coercion? We're not okay. Well, that's a dumb question because it doesn't understand that we've already changed the goalpost to not mandating it and having it be encouraged. Would mandatory journaling be treated differently if it were focused on positive aspects like gratitude or achievements? Yeah, but we the thing is like, I mean, one, I think if you did that, like let's say, like, oh, you only get you're $10 if you talk up somebody else, or you like talk up yourself. It's like, that's dumb. We don't want a bunch of people to just gloat everywhere. We already get enough of that with fucking Twitter and shit like that. So, no. Would mandatory journaling be different? I literally just read that question. How would the government ensure the authenticity of these journals without invading personal autonomy? We wouldn't. Everyone's an unreliable narrator. It's impossible to remove bias and your feelings from it. And so you just have to deal with it. I mean, that's what you do when you read primary documents. You read documents from fucking classical Rome. A lot of them have a bunch of bullshit where someone's like talking shit on somebody, Like, this guy's a dumbass. He sold me fucking two donkeys for a fucking piece of gold, and it's just like shitting on a guy because he doesn't like him. That's a really bad example, and I do know of other examples, but it's like, um, there's all sorts of shit that people would have a misunderstanding of or blow out of proportion, and I think that's fine because we'd be able to read the other person's view, right? Like, if it was mandated, maybe we go back because then we have the other like, if we're required to have the other person's point of view, then you know then you have an even better understanding. It's like if two people wrote about each other and their experiences with each other. One guy's like, I like this guy, he's really cool. The other one's like, I hate him because he's fucking, he's too loud at parties or something. I don't fucking know. Like, we don't like this guy. It's like, you'd be dumb. But you'd be able to understand people more. So I don't know. It's just some random thought I had once, and that's the whole point of this podcast is random thoughts. So that's me, man, and I really appreciate y'all listening, all five of you, and this is the train leaving the station. Choo choo. Adios, guys.